The check fluttered from Daniel's fingers like a dying bird, landing on the scarred oak table in his parents' cramped Brooklyn kitchen. 200 grand, he said, voice steady as steel, though his heart hammered like a freight train. For the mortgage, the medical bills, whatever the hell you need, it's yours. His mother, Evelyn, snatched it up with trembling hands, her eyes, once warm like summer cornfields, now sharp as broken glass. Danny, baby, you're a godsend. What would we do without our golden boy? She clutched it to her chest, as if it were absolution for all the years of silence, the unspoken debts piling higher than the rent in this godforsaken city. But Daniel's father, Harlan, just grunted from his lazy boy throne in the corner, nursing a Budweiser that had gone warm hours ago. Money don't fix everything, son. Remember that. His words hung heavy, laced with the whiskey tang of resentment, and Daniel felt the familiar twist in his gut, the one that said he'd never be enough, no matter how many zeros he wired from his Wall Street perch. It was a Thursday in late October, the kind of New York autumn where the wind off the East River carried the bite of coming winter, and Daniel Harper had just turned 35. He wasn't supposed to be here, in this sagging row house on the edge of Bed-Stuy, inhaling the ghosts of his childhood. Faded wallpaper peeling like old skin, the perpetual hum of the ancient Frigidaire, and the faint, acrid scent of his father's unfiltered Camels. He had a corner office overlooking the Hudson now, a sleek loft in Chelsea that cost more per month than this whole house, and a life pieced together from deals closed in boardrooms and nights blurred by craft cocktails at hidden speakeasies. But family was the anchor that dragged him back, every time. He'd been their bottomless wallet since college, when the first student loans hit and Harlan's mill job vanished overnight in the '08 crash. Tuition for his sister Mia's art degree at Pratt, covered. Emergency root canals for Evelyn, paid. That investment in Harlan's half-baked food truck dream, which lasted exactly 3 months before rusting in a lot in Queens, financed. Daniel didn't complain, not out loud. Growing up gay in a household where Reagan posters still yellowed the fridge door, he'd learned early to buy affection, to grease the wheels of tolerance with greenbacks. It worked, mostly. They called him for birthdays, sent passive-aggressive Christmas cards quoting Leviticus, but they cashed the checks without fail. Tonight, though, as Evelyn folded the check into her apron pocket with a sigh that bordered on prayer, Daniel felt the weight of it all pressing down like the subway rumble beneath their feet. "You eating okay up there in that fancy place?" she asked, avoiding his eyes as she stirred a pot of watery chili on the stove. All those city temptations. He forced a laugh, the kind that echoed hollow in his chest. "I'm good, Ma. Eating kale smoothies and closing deals. You know me, nose to the grindstone." Lies, of course. The grindstone had worn him thin. The deals were just numbers on screens, and the temptations? They were the men who brushed past him in bars, eyes lingering a beat too long, promising something real in a world built on facades. Harlan shifted, the chair creaking under his bulk. "Heard about that promotion. VP at 20 mil a pop. Proud of you, boy. But don't let it go to your head. Devil's in the details." There it was, the undercurrent, the Bible thump that surfaced like bile after too many beers. Daniel nodded, swallowing the retort. He was their provider, their prodigal son who never quite strayed far enough to be lost. Yet, by the time he kissed Evelyn's cheek, dry as parchment, and clapped Harlan on the shoulder, the clock on the wall ticked past 8. Outside, the streetlights buzzed to life, casting long shadows on the cracked sidewalk. Daniel slid into his Audi, the engine purring like a contented lover, and punched the address into GPS. A dive bar in the village, the kind where secrets fermented in dim corners. James Callahan was already there, nursing a whiskey neat at the scarred mahogany bar, his broad shoulders cutting a silhouette against the neon glow of a Miller sign. At 32, James was the kind of man who turned heads without trying. Tousled auburn hair that begged to be ruffled, green eyes sharp as emeralds, and a jawline that could cut glass. He was a freelance photographer, the type who chased sunsets in the Rockies one week and protests in Ferguson the next, his camera slung like a talisman around his neck. They'd met 6 months back at a gallery opening in Soho, Daniel nursing a scotch and James capturing the crowd's fleeting glamour in black and white frames. "You're late," James said, sliding a stool over with his boot. His voice a low rumble that sent heat pooling in Daniel's veins. No judgment, just that easy grin that made the world feel less like a battlefield. "Family drama," Daniel replied, signaling the bartender. "The usual extortion racket." James's brow furrowed, but he didn't pry, not yet. That was the beauty of it. James saw through the armor without demanding to polish it off. They talked instead about nothing and everything. The latest Scorsese flick, the Met's inevitable collapse, the way the city lights danced like fireflies on the Hudson at midnight. 2 hours blurred into laughter and stolen glances. James's knee brushing Daniel's under the bar, electric as a live wire. When they stumbled out into the crisp night, arms linked like it was the most natural thing, Daniel felt the first crack in his carefully constructed dam. James pulled him into a doorway, the brick rough against his back, and kissed him slow and deep, tasting of whiskey and promise. "Come home with me," James murmured against his lips, breath ghosting warm in the chill. Daniel hesitated, the echo of his father's grunt still ringing. But then James's hand cupped his face, thumb tracing the scar above his eyebrow from a childhood fall, and the world narrowed to that touch. "Yeah," Daniel whispered. "Let's go." James's walk-up in the East Village was a chaos of exposed brick and Polaroids pinned to every wall. Sun-bleached canyons, laughing kids in Harlem alleys, a lone figure silhouetted against the Brooklyn Bridge at dawn. They didn't make it past the threshold before clothes hit the floor, bodies tangling in a frenzy of need and release. It was messy, urgent. Daniel's hands mapping the freckles across James's chest like constellations. James's gasps filling the air like music. Afterward, spent and sated, they lay tangled in sheets that smelled of sandalwood and city dust. James's head on Daniel's chest, heartbeat sinking like a lullaby. "You deserve this," James said softly, fingers tracing lazy circles on Daniel's skin. "More than checks and guilt trips. You deserve someone who sees you." Daniel stared at the ceiling, the water stain blooming like a bruise. For the first time in years, he believed it might be true. But dawn brought the call. Evelyn, voice quivering. "Mia needs surgery. It's bad, Danny. We can't." He wired the money before coffee, James watching from the kitchenette with quiet eyes. "They're bleeding you dry," he said finally, pouring 2 mugs of black brew. Daniel shrugged, the mask slipping back on. "It's family. You do what you have to." James didn't argue, but his silence spoke volumes. As Daniel dressed for another day of mergers and acquisitions, he caught his reflection in the cracked mirror. Hollow cheeks, eyes shadowed like storm clouds. 35, and still chasing approval from ghosts. Weeks bled into months, the pattern as predictable as the F-train delays. Daniel climbed higher at the firm, senior VP now, bonuses stacking like cordwood, while the calls from Brooklyn grew more frequent. A leaky roof, Harlan's heart scare that turned out to be indigestion. Mia's fresh start in LA, complete with a scriptwriting workshop that cost a small fortune. Each time, Daniel paid, the transfers instant and impersonal, his account dipping but never dry. In return, sporadic thanks, laced with sermons about finding a nice girl and settling down proper. James became the counterweight, the stolen weekends in the Catskills where they hiked trails slick with autumn leaves, James's camera clicking away moments Daniel had never known. Laughter unscripted, kisses under star-pricked skies, the simple joy of 2 bodies fitting like puzzle pieces. "This is real," James would say, pulling him close by a crackling fire. "Don't let them steal it." But doubt crept in like fog off the bay. One night, after a particularly brutal board meeting where Daniel greenlit layoffs that haunted his dreams, he arrived at James's with takeout Thai and a bottle of Napa Cab. They ate cross-legged on the floor, James regaling him with tales of a shoot in the Badlands. Eagles wheeling, dust devils dancing like spirits. Laughter came easy, then lovemaking slower, tender, James whispering endearments that made Daniel's throat tight. In the afterglow, phone in hand, Evelyn's text lit the screen. Emergency. Call now. Daniel bolted upright, heart slamming. It was Mia, car accident, broken femur, rehab that would run 6 figures. He paced the loft, phone glued to ear, haggling with insurance drones while James brewed tea. His face a mask of quiet fury. $300K, Daniel announced finally, sinking onto the bed. They'll be okay. James set the mug down, steam curling like accusations. And you? When do they give a damn about you? The words landed like a slap. Daniel recoiled, the old defenses rising. It's not like that. They're blood. Blood that uses you like an ATM. James's voice cracked, green eyes flashing. I love you, Dan. All of you, the brilliant mind, the generous heart, the guy who cries at old Springsteen songs. But this? It's killing you. Love. The word hung there, raw and unadorned. Daniel had heard it before. In hurried hookups, in the mirror's false promises. But never like this, laced with truth. He pulled James close, burying his face in the crook of his neck, inhaling the scent of cedar and resolve. I love you too, he murmured, the admission a dam breaking. God, I do. They held each other through the night, whispers weaving futures. A cabin upstate, trips to Provincetown. A life unyoked from obligation. For the first time, Daniel glimpsed freedom, not the kind bought with bonuses but earned in vulnerability. But Brooklyn called again at dawn, Harlan's voice gravel rough. Your sister's stable, but the house, it's underwater. Bail us out one more time, son. For old times. Daniel glanced at James, still asleep, lashes fanned like whispers on his cheek. He typed the transfer, hit send, and felt the chain tighten another link. Winter clamped down on the city like a vice, snow piling in drifts against the brownstones, turning Manhattan into a glittering mausoleum. Daniel's days blurred into a frenzy of conference calls and client schmoozes. His nights a refuge in James's arms, where the world outside faded to irrelevance. They built rituals. Sunday brunches at a hole in the wall in the West Village, James's pancakes drowning in maple syrup. Lazy afternoons flipping through vinyl at Rough Trade, arguing Dylan versus Bowie. Stolen hours in James's darkroom, where chemicals bloomed images from negatives, much like the tentative hope blooming in Daniel's chest. Yet the ledger never balanced. The transfers to Brooklyn had become automatic, a monthly hemorrhage disguised as duty. Mia's rehab stretched into therapy sessions for her creative block. Evelyn's minor cataract surgery ballooned into a full suite at a private clinic, and Harlan's retirement fund materialized as a shiny F-150 parked crooked in the driveway. Visible in the photo, Evelyn texted with a winking emoji. Look what your generosity bought. Proud Papa. Daniel stared at the image during a lunch meeting at Per Se, the foie gras turning to ash in his mouth. Across the table, his boss, a silver-haired shark named Victor, droned about Q4 projections. Harper, you're killing it. That biotech merger? Pure gold. Keep this up, and equity's yours. Thanks, Daniel muttered, pocketing the phone. Gold. Funny how it felt more like fool's pyrite these days. James noticed, of course. He always did. That evening, as they navigated the holiday throng on Fifth Avenue, lights twinkling like defiant stars against the dusk. James stopped under the Saks windows, where animatronic angels twirled in eternal grace. You're fading on me, he said, cupping Daniel's gloved hand in his. Talk to me. Daniel's breath fogged the air, mingling with the scent of roasted chestnuts from a vendor cart. Just work. The usual grind. Bullshit. James's eyes narrowed, playful but piercing. It's them. Again. The admission stuck in Daniel's throat, but James's patience was a bomb. They ducked into a quiet bistro off Madison, nursing espressos amid the murmur of power suits. There, over tiramisu that neither touched, Daniel spilled it, the truck, the texts, the endless cycle. I know it's toxic, he confessed, voice low, but cutting them off? It'd kill Ma and Dad. He's all bluster, but underneath he's scared. Lost his way years ago. James listened, fingers interlaced with Daniel's under the table. A lifeline. Love isn't a ledger, Dan. You can't buy their hearts or yours back. He paused, green eyes softening. But I get it. My folks in Boston? Same vibe, Irish Catholic guilt on steroids. Dad still mails me pamphlets on reparative therapy every Easter. I send em back with pride stickers. Daniel chuckled, the sound rusty but real. Rebel. You're rebel, James corrected, leaning in for a quick, defiant kiss that drew a few raised brows from the next booth. In that moment, under the glow of pendant lights, Daniel felt seen. Not as the wallet, but as the man who ached for connection. Christmas loomed, a minefield of mistletoe and passive digs. Evelyn insisted, "Family dinner, Danny. No excuses. Bring that nice girl from accounting." "What's her name, Sarah?" Daniel demurred, citing travel. But the guilt gnawed like tinsel in his throat. Instead, he and James escaped to a cabin in the Adirondacks, snow blanketing the pines like a hush from God. It was magic. Chopping wood until their cheeks burned rosy, James's laughter echoing as they built a snowman with obscenely exaggerated anatomy. Nights by the fireplace, bodies entwined, James reading aloud from Kerouac while Daniel traced the tattoos snaking up his lover's arms. A compass rose on his bicep, wander scripted across his ribs. "For the boy who ran," James explained one night, voice thick. "Foster kid shuffle. Learned early. Roots are what you plant, not what's planted in you." Daniel's heart clenched. His own childhood, strict but stable, prayers before meals, little league summers, seemed a luxury by comparison. "You're the strongest person I know," he said, pulling James closer. They made love with the fire's glow painting their skin gold, slow and reverent. James's whispers a litany of affirmations. "Beautiful. Mine. Home." Afterward, as snow tapped the window like impatient fingers, Daniel vowed silently, "No more bleeding for ghosts. This was worth fighting for." Back in the city, reality reasserted with a vengeance. New Year's Eve, champagne flutes clinking in Times Square, replicas on every screen. Daniel's phone buzzed. "Harlan. Down on our luck again, son. Mia's ex cleaned her out. Owes back child support or some shit. Spot us 50? Make it right for the new year." Daniel was midway through a toast at James's gallery party. Surrounded by artsy types in ironic fedoras, James's latest exhibit of urban grit drawing murmurs of acclaim, when the text hit. He stepped onto the fire escape, the metropolis sprawling below like a glittering trap. $50K. Pocket change for him, a lifeline for them. His thumb hovered over the banking app. James found him there, slipping an arm around his waist. "Hey, stranger. Everything okay?" The lie died on Daniel's lips. "It's Dad. Again." James sighed, not in exasperation but sorrow. "Send it. But promise me next time boundaries, or I start charging rent for this heart of mine." Daniel laughed, pulling him into a kiss that tasted of salt and resolve. "Deal." He transferred the funds, then silenced the phone, tossing it onto a milk crate. "Fuck it. Tonight's ours." They danced until dawn in that crowded loft, bodies swaying to indie folk anthems. James's head on Daniel's shoulder, the world reduced to bass lines and belonging. For a few hours, the ledger balanced. Spring unfurled tentative, cherry blossoms dusting the high line like confetti from a forgotten parade. Daniel threw himself into work, landing a deal that netted the firm 7 figures, his bonus enough to fund a European jaunt. "Paris?" He proposed over dim sum in Chinatown, eyes alight. "You, me, the Louvre, no cell service." James grinned, chopsticks paused midair. "Sold. But only if we hit the Marais, gayest quarter in the world. Pride parades every block." The planning became their foreplay. Guidebooks dog-eared, playlists curated for train rides through Normandy. Daniel even confided in Victor about a special someone. The words clumsy but liberating. Victor clapped his back. "Good for you, Harper. Life's too short for closets." Emboldened, Daniel tested waters at home. A casual mention to Evelyn during a rare call. "Seeing someone great makes me happy." Her pause stretched eternal. Then, "As long as it's a girl, honey, we worry about your soul." The knife twisted, but Daniel parried. "Love's love, ma." That's the soul of it. He hung up before the sermon, heart pounding, and texted James a heart emoji, the first of many. But May brought the storm. Mia called hysterical. Dan, it's bad. I came out. To everyone. Dad flipped, threw me out. Said I'm no daughter of his. Sobs choked her words, and Daniel's world tilted. He drove to Brooklyn that night, James in the passenger seat, silent sentinel. The house loomed dark, porch light flickering like a warning. Harlan answered the door in boxers and a wife-beater, eyes bloodshot. What the hell you doing here? Mia's with me, Daniel said, stealing his spine. And we're talking. Now. Inside, Evelyn hovered, wringing her hands, while Mia huddled on the couch, bruised lip and defiant eyes. Harlan paced, Bible thumping the coffee table. Abominations. Both my kids. Twisted by the devil. The word landed like shrapnel. Daniel's blood roared. You want to talk abominations? How about using your son like a piggy bank for a decade? The truck, the surgeries, Mia's endless starts. All on my dime. While you preached hate from the pulpit of my guilt. Harlan's face purpled. We raised you. Gave you everything. Everything except acceptance. Daniel shot back, voice breaking. James's hand on his shoulder grounded him. A quiet strength. Evelyn whimpered. Danny, please. Family sticks. Not when it cuts, he replied, gathering Mia's duffel. We're done being your wallet. They left to Harlan's bellows, the door slamming like Judgment Day. In the car, Mia wept against James's chest, while Daniel gripped the wheel white-knuckled, the city lights blurring through tears. At James's, they crashed in a heap. Wine poured, stories shared until the sky lightened. Thank you, Mia whispered to James, then Daniel, for being brave first. Daniel met James's gaze over her sleeping form. We are brave, he said. Together. But dawn brought Evelyn's voicemail. Come back. We forgive you. But end this sin. For us. The betrayal burned fresh. Daniel deleted it, pulling James close. The fight was just beginning. Summer scorched the asphalt, turning the subways into saunas and the streets into gauntlets of sweat-slicked commuters. Daniel's loft in Chelsea became a sanctuary, its high ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows a buffer against the chaos below. With Mia bunking on the pullout, her graphic design gigs paying just enough for coffee and canvases. The space hummed with new life. Her sketches papering the fridge, playlists of Halsey and Troye Sivan blasting from tinny speakers. James fit seamlessly, his camera bag a permanent fixture by the door, his laughter chasing shadows from the corners. Yet the fracture lines spiderwebbed. Harlan's silence was a weapon sharper than sermons. No calls, no cards, just the echo of that night in Brooklyn. His face contorted in righteous fury. Evelyn tried bridge building. Tentative texts about grandkids someday, laced with links to conversion therapy retreats in the Poconos. Daniel blocked the numbers, but the poison seeped in, manifesting in nightmares where he drowned in ledgers of red ink, Harlan's voice booming. Sinner. Work offered no respite. The biotech merger soured, FDA red tape, shareholder mutiny, and Victor's praise turned to pointed emails. Step up, Harper, or step aside. Daniel buried himself in spreadsheets, arriving home hollow-eyed, collapsing into James's embrace like a soldier from the front. One muggy July evening, after a 12-hour day that ended in a screaming match with a client, Daniel found James and Mia on the fire escape, sharing a joint under the haze of sunset. The skyline glittered indifferent, the Empire State piercing the clouds like a needle. Join the rebellion? James teased, exhaling a plume that curled toward the stars. Daniel waved it off, slumping beside them. Rebellion's my middle name these days. His laugh was brittle, and James's eyes sharpened. Mia stubbed out the roach, sensing the undercurrent. I'm heading to that open mic in the village. You two. Talk. She pecked Daniel's cheek and vanished, leaving the air thick with unspoken. James turned, knees bumping Daniel's. You've been a ghost. What's eating you? The dam cracked. Words tumbled. The merger's implosion, Evelyn's latest guilt grenade. a package arriving that morning, filled with old photo albums and a note. Remember who you were before the city corrupted you. Daniel's voice rose, raw with the weight. I keep waiting for the other shoe. For them to show up, hat in hand, because the truck's payments lapsed or Mia's phase needs funding. And I hate that I still care. James pulled him into a hug, the metal railing digging into their ribs. You care because you're human, Dan. That's your strength, not your curse. His lips brushed Daniel's temple. But you don't have to carry it alone. They made love on the fire escape that night, the city a distant hum, bodies urgent against the cooling iron. James moved with deliberate grace, hands worshipping every inch, murmurs of I see you, grounding Daniel like anchors. Climax shattered him open, tears mingling with sweat, and in the quiet aftermath, James held him as sobs racked his frame. Not of sorrow, but release. Paris shimmered on the horizon, a beacon. They jetted out in August, the flight a blur of in-flight movies and James's hand warm in his. The city of light welcomed them with rain-slicked streets and the scent of fresh baguettes. Their Marais apartment overlooked a courtyard where lovers quarreled in lilting French, and days melted into a haze of museums and bistros. The Eiffel Tower at midnight, sparkling like a promise. Lazy afternoons in Luxembourg Gardens, James photographing Daniel amid the roses, capturing smiles unguarded and rare. One evening, tipsy on rose at a canal-side cafe, James pulled a velvet box from his satchel. Not a proposal yet, he said, green eyes dancing, but a vow to us. Inside, 2 silver rings, etched with intertwined roots. Daniel's breath hitched as James slid one on his finger. For the boy who planted me. Daniel reciprocated, the metal cool against heated skin. To roots worth fighting for. They kissed to the cheers of strangers, the sane lapping approval at their feet. Back home, the idol fractured. September brought hurricanes, literal and figurative. Irma battered the Gulf, but in Brooklyn, Harlan's minor flood, from a burst pipe demanded 20 grand in repairs. The call came via Mia, who'd softened toward their mother. He's too proud to ask, Dan, but the house, it's all they have. Daniel's resolve wavered. Over takeout lo mein in the loft, he debated with James, Mia mediating like a pint-sized referee. Send half, James urged. Test the waters. But no more blank checks. Reluctantly, Daniel wired 10. Harlan's response? A curt thanks text, followed by nothing. Evelyn, though, escalated. A visit unannounced, pounding on the door one drizzly afternoon while Daniel was at a deposition. James answered, polite but firm. He's not here, Mrs. Harper, but if it's about reconciliation. She cut him off, eyes raking his frame with disdain. Where's my son? And who's this friend? James stiffened but held ground. The man he loves, and family if you'll let us be. Evelyn's laugh was bitter. Love? That's what you call it? Preying on my boy. She thrust a pamphlet from darkness to light, testimonies of the redeemed, into his hands. Tell Danny to come home, alone, before it's too late. James shut the door softly, pamphlet crumpling in his fist. When Daniel returned, reeking of Subway and stress, James's face was thunder. Your mother's a piece of work. The story spilled, and Daniel's fury ignited. She came here? To what? Exorcise me. He stormed to the balcony, phone in hand, dialing Evelyn. Voicemail. Stay out of my life, Ma, or what's left of it. But the seed of doubt took root. That night, as James slept, Daniel scrolled old texts. Years of love you, son, appended to pleas for cash. Was this love or transaction? October deepened the chill, leaves carpeting the parks in crimson decay. The merger salvaged itself. Victor toasting Daniel at the holiday party. Harper, you're unbreakable. But unbreakable felt like brittle, one crack from shattering. James sensed the shift, countering with gestures. A surprise weekend in the Hamptons, where they walked beaches whipped by wind, collecting sea glass like talismans. Remember Paris? James said, tossing a smooth blue shard into the surf. That's us, polished by storms. Daniel nodded, but the ring on his finger felt heavier, the vows whispering questions. Thanksgiving loomed, a gauntlet. Mia pushed for neutrality. Potluck at my studio. Neutral ground. But Harlan RSVP'd with conditions. No deviance at the table. The word detonated. Daniel exploded in the loft, vase shattering against the wall. After everything? I'm done. James pulled him down, amid the shards. Then let's make our own table. You, me, Mia, the family we choose. They did. Turkey roasted to perfection. Mia's cranberry relish tart as wit. James's stories spinning gold from grief. Laughter filled the space. Wine flowing like forgiveness. For a night it was enough. But December cracked the facade. Christmas Eve, Evelyn appeared at the loft. Uninvited, eyes red-rimmed. A bottle of Daniel's favorite bourbon clutched like contrition. Just talk, she pleaded through the intercom. James buzzed her up, ever the optimist. She entered like a specter, coat dusted with snow, gaze darting from Polaroids of Paris to the rings glinting on their fingers. Danny, this isn't you. It is, he said, voice steady. The me you've ignored for years. Tears tracked her cheeks. We were scared. For your soul. But Harlan, he's sick. Real sick this time. Liver. Docs say months, if that. She collapsed onto the couch, sobs racking her frail frame. He won't see you unless you repent. End this lifestyle. Foreclosure. The room spun. James's hand found Daniel's, squeezing warning. But Evelyn's plea pierced. You're our boy, our provider. Don't let us die strangers. Daniel's world narrowed to her trembling hands, the bourbon bottle sweating on the table. Repent? For loving? Yet the image of Harlan, withered, wheezing, clawed at him. The wallet whispered, fix this. One last time. I need air, he muttered, bolting for the door. James followed, but Daniel waved him back. Stay with her, please. The streets blurred, holiday lights mocking his turmoil. He walked for hours, ending at the Brooklyn Bridge, winds howling like banshees. Dawn broke gray, and he returned to find James alone. Evelyn gone with a cab voucher and untouched bourbon. She left this. James handed over a folded note. Forgive us, but save yourself. Ma. James's eyes searched his. What now? Daniel crumpled the paper, resolve fracturing. I don't know. God, I don't know. The betrayal wasn't Evelyn's words. It was his own heart, tugging him back to the chain. January's jaw clenched tight, ice storms glazing the city in fragile armor. Daniel threw himself into the fray at work, chasing deals like lifelines. But Victor's patience frayed. Harper, you're off your game. Shape up or ship out. The warning echoed Harlan's old refrains, blurring boundaries between boardroom and blood. Home fractured further. Mia, sensing the storm, decamped to a sublet in Bushwick. Space for you to breathe. Bro, call when you're ready. Her absence left the loft echoing. James's attempts at normalcy. Movie nights with Brokeback Mountain irony. Homemade lasagna that stuck to the pan. Ringing hollow against Daniel's silence. The rings stayed on, but the vows chafed. James confronted it one blizzard-bound night, snow muffling the world outside. They sat knee to knee on the couch, mulled wine steaming between them. You're pulling away, James said, voice even but edged. Talk to me, Dan, before we freeze solid. The floodgates groaned. Daniel confessed the torment. Evelyn's plea, Harlan's shadow illness, the siren call of redemption through renunciation. It's not them, it's me. The kid who fixed everything with money, who thought love was conditional. What if they're right? What if this us is the sin that's costing me my family? James recoiled as if slapped, green eyes flashing hurt. Sin? That's their poison, not truth. I've watched you bloom with me, laugh, create, live. And now you want to trade that for their approval? For a deathbed pat on the head? It's not that simple. Daniel shot back, rising, the wine sloshing crimson. They're dying, James. My father, the man who taught me to throw a curveball, who cried when I graduated. I can't just let him go hating me. James stood too, close enough to feel the heat of fury. Hating you for who? For loving a man who loves you back? Or for finally seeing through their game? His voice cracked. I've given you everything, my heart, my home. But if you choose them, if you choose to repent, I can't be your consolation prize. The words hung, a guillotine. Daniel reached for him, but James stepped back, the distance a chasm. I need time, Daniel whispered. Time's what they stole from you, James replied, grabbing his coat. Don't let them take us too. The door clicked shut, soft as a verdict. Daniel sank to the floor, the loft vast and vacant. Hours blurred into a vigil. Pacing, scrolling voicemails from Evelyn. Tearful pleas for one visit. Poring over old photos where Harlan's grin was genuine, untainted by bigotry. Dawn found him at the kitchen table, drafting an email to Victor, requesting leave. Personal matters. Sent. He drove to Brooklyn unannounced, the Audi slicing through slush. The house sagged under fresh snow, Christmas lights still tangled like regrets. Evelyn answered, gaunt in a housecoat, eyes widening. Danny! Thank God! Harlan lay propped in the lazy boy, oxygen mask fogging with labored breaths, skin sallow as old newsprint. He removed the mask, voice a rasp. Boy! The room closed in, familiar odors of Vicks and despair. Daniel knelt, taking his father's gnarled hand. Dad, I'm here. Evelyn hovered, tissues clutched. He wants to make peace. Before, you know. Harlan's eyes, milky but piercing, locked on Daniel's ring. That photographer. He's why you're poisoned. No. Daniel's voice steadied. He's why I'm whole. But I'm here for you. Not to repent, to forgive. Harlan coughed, a wet rattle. Forgive? For loving you? For needing you? Tears tracked his cheeks. We were poor, Danny. Scared. You were our way out, the smart one, the earner. But we twisted it. Made you pay for our failures. The confession stunned. Evelyn sobbed openly. We knew. About you. Since high school. The glances, the secrets. We buried it under prayers. But it was fear. Of losing you to the world. Daniel's throat burned. You didn't lose me. You pushed. Harlan squeezed his hand. Frail but fierce. Then don't push back. Live, son. For you. Not us. He glanced at Evelyn. We wired the truck payment. From your last gift. It's over. The taking. The words landed soft. A release. Daniel wept then. Head bowed on the armrest. Harlan's fingers in his hair like when he was small. Evelyn joined. A huddle of fractured love mending in the dim light. They talked for hours, stories unearthed. Harlan's own hidden pains, a cousin lost to AIDS in the 80s, whispers of regret. Evelyn's dreams deferred for motherhood, now blooming late in community theater. No sermons, just humanity stripped bare. Daniel left at dusk, lighter but raw, promising daily visits. The drive back blurred, catharsis warring with ache. James's loft. No, their loft. Weighted dark. A post-it on the fridge. At the darkroom. Doors open if you choose us. He chose. Bursting in, chemicals sharp in the air. James startled from the enlarger. Apron streaked red. Dan! I'm sorry. Daniel closed the distance, hands framing James's face. You're my family. My root. I choose us. James searched his eyes, then crushed him in an embrace, kissed desperate and devouring. Don't scare me like that again. Never. They tumbled onto the work table, tools clattering, bodies reclaiming territory. It was fierce, reclaiming, nails raking, gasps echoing, love a bonfire against the cold. February thawed tentatively, visits to Brooklyn a rhythm. Chemo sessions where Harlan joked weekly about Mets tickets. Evelyn sharing recipes with a vigor long dormant. Daniel mediated, boundaries firm, no more money, but time abundant. Mia joined sporadically, her presence a bridge, forgiveness tentative but growing. James wove through it all, his camera chronicling the quiet miracles. Harlan's first smile at a pride pin Mia gifted. Evelyn's tearful hug after a Will and Grace marathon. You're good for him, she told James one afternoon. squeezing his arm. For all of us. The merger closed triumphantly. Victor's apology a backhanded toast. Knew you'd pull through, Harper. Daniel accepted the promotion, but on his terms, flex hours for family, a foundation seed for queer youth housing. Spring equinox brought the reckoning's bloom. Harlan rallied briefly, enough for a promenade in Prospect Park. Wheelchair-bound but beaming, Daniel pushing, James snapping candids, Evelyn and Mia flanking like sentinels. Under dogwood petals drifting like snow, Harlan pulled Daniel aside. Proud son. Of the man, the whole man. Tears stung. Love you, Dad. Love you back. No strings. But strings lingered. Invisible. Late April, Evelyn called in hysterics. Harlan's turn, the end rushing. Daniel raced over, James driving, the hospital a sterile purgatory of beeps and bleach. In the room, Harlan clung to consciousness, Evelyn at his side. Danny, he wheezed. James, come. They gathered, hands linked in a circle. Unlikely, unbreakable. Harlan's gaze swept them. Family. Real family. Don't waste it. He slipped away at midnight, monitors flatlining to silence. Grief crashed, a tidal wave. Daniel keening into James's chest, Evelyn's wails harmonizing, Mia's quiet tears soaking the sheets. The funeral was small, Presbyterian chapel in Bed-Stuy, eulogies laced with unspoken. Harlan's will surprised. The house to Evelyn, a modest bequest to Daniel and his partner James, for the home they build. No wallet, just witness. In the cemetery, under April showers, Daniel stood graveside, James's arm anchor. He saw us, he murmured. At the end. He did. James kissed his temple. And so do I. Back in the city, healing stuttered. May's warmth coaxed green from concrete, but loss shadowed. Daniel and James eloped to City Hall one humid afternoon. Vows renewed, rings exchanged anew, Mia and a bemused clerk witnesses. To Roots, Daniel said, sealing it with a kiss. Evelyn attended the reception. A rooftop affair in Chelsea, string lights twinkling. Tentative in a floral dress, toasting with trembling grace. To new beginnings, and forgiving the old. Mia thrived, her art show in June drawing crowds, themes of fractured families resonating raw. Daniel mentored at the firm, advocating for LGBTQ+ initiatives, turning pain to purpose. Yet the climax brewed unseen. June pride swelled Manhattan, rainbows rioting against stone. Daniel and James marched, hands clasped, Evelyn watching from the sidelines. First time, her wave shy but real. That night, euphoric and exhausted, they returned to the loft to find it ransacked. Drawers gutted, safe ajar. James's camera gear gone. Daniel's bonus check stubs scattered like confetti. A note on the mirror, Evelyn's scrawl. Borrowed what we need. One last time. Forgive, Ma. Betrayal's blade twisted deep. Evelyn had slipped a key copy months back, for emergencies. And now, desperation's theft, Harlan's medical debts unearthed post-mortem, her pride shattered. Daniel's rage boiled, phone slamming as he dialed. Voicemail. How could you? After everything. James pulled him down, fury mirroring. We press charges? No. Daniel exhaled, the fight ebbing. She's broken, like we all were. They drove to Brooklyn at dawn, finding Evelyn huddled on the stoop, suitcases packed, eyes hollow. I sold the house, she confessed, handing over a check. Full restitution, plus interest. Starting over in Florida. With a cousin. No more taking. The confrontation raged. Tears, accusations, Harlan's ghost mediating. You taught me conditional love, Daniel said finally. But I choose unconditional. For you. Go heal. Evelyn crumpled into his arms, sobs of release. I'm sorry, baby, for the sinner I made you feel. You're no sinner, he whispered. Just human. She left on a Greyhound, window waved goodbye. The check? Deposited, but half-funneled to Mia's studio, the rest to their upstate cabin fund. Roots planted deliberate. Summer deepened, wounds scarring to strength. Daniel and James honeymooned in the Rockies, James's lens capturing wildflowers and whispers. Back home, life wove forward. Promotions, exhibits, Evelyn's sporadic cards, postcards from beaches, edged with pride flags. The betrayal, a scar, not a shackle. In its wake, love deepened, humanistic and hard-won. Flawed families mending, not perfect but present. Autumn gilded the edges once more, leaves carpeting Central Park in fires of amber and rust. Daniel's life, once a ledger of deficits, balanced in subtler currencies. Mornings tangled with James, coffee brewing to the murmur of NPR. Evenings on the balcony, city hum a lullaby, discussing futures over Merlot. Adoptions maybe, or fostering, turning their own fractures to cradles. Evelyn settled in Sarasota, waitressing at a diner by day, volunteering at a local PFLAG chapter by night. Her calls evolved. No please, just queries. How's that handsome photographer? And shares of triumphs, like her first rainbow pin at bingo. Your dad, she said once, voice thick. He'd be proud. Of the man you love. Daniel believed her. Grief for Harlan softened to stories. Fishing trips retold at barbecues, his gruff laugh echoed in James's impressions. Mia's career ignited. A mural commission for the High Line, themes of chosen kin, and her pride float design that year drew tears from strangers. Work steadied. Daniel's advocacy bloomed. The firm sponsoring queer internships, Victor grumbling approval. You're making us woke, Harper. Good for PR. But it was more purpose, the humanistic pulse that beat beneath deals. James's exhibit in November, Roots, Fractured and Found, filled a Soho gallery, walls alive with their shared saga. Blurred Brooklyn stoops, Paris embraces, hospital hands clasped. Daniel's portrait hung central. Eyes alight, ring glinting, captioned homeward. Critics raved. Evelyn flew up for the opening, her gasp at the images a benediction. Beautiful, she whispered, hugging James. All of it. The after-party spilled into dawn, laughter liquid as the East River. Daniel pulled James aside, amid the throng, kissing him slow under gallery spotlights. This is it, he murmured. Us, unbreakable. James grinned, that rogue spark. Told you, roots run deep. Winter whispered in, but the cold held no terror. Christmas found them in the new cabin upstate, stone fireplace roaring, tree adorned with Mia's ornaments and Evelyn's knitted stars. She joined via video, face flushed from Florida sun. Merry, my loves, to family real and remade. Toasts rang, glasses clinking like chimes. Later, as snow fell soft beyond the panes, Daniel and James slipped away to the porch, bundled in wool, breaths mingling white. Remember that first night? James asked, head on Daniel's shoulder. Bar in the village, you all buttoned up and beautiful. Daniel chuckled. Thought you'd bolt when I mentioned the family tab. Never. James's hand found his. Worth every chain. The year turned, 2026 dawning crisp. Daniel turned 36 in a whirl of cake and confetti. James's gift a leather-bound journal. For the stories we'll tell our kids. The word kids landed gentle, a seed. Spring brought green shoots. Evelyn's visit, her first Pride March arm in arm with them. Rainbow face paint smudging her cheeks. For Harlan, she said, waving a sign. Love wins. Mia announced a gallery in Brooklyn. Harper House. Nod to roots reclaimed. Betrayals faded to footnotes. The wallet's weight lifted. Daniel volunteered at the youth center, mentoring boys with eyes like his once were wary, wondrous. One kid, Alex, 16 and freshly out, clutched his sleeve after a session. You make it seem possible, loving who you love. It is, Daniel replied, throat tight. Messy but possible. James captured it all. His lens a bridge from pain to poetry. Their love, once a rebellion, became ritual. Anniversaries in the Marais, lazy Sundays with the L-word marathons. Nights where words failed and bodies spoke. One June evening, post-Pride haze, they walked the High Line, Mia's mural glowing under twilight. Evelyn texted a photo, her at a beach bonfire, Harlan's old fishing hat perched jaunty. Thinking of you all. Sinners? Nah. Saints in progress. Daniel showed James, laughter bubbling. Saints. Us. Damn right. James pulled him close, the city pulsing approval. Years layered like sediment. Adoptions pursued. A boy named Riley joining at 8, all freckles and fire. Evelyn's remarriage to a widower named Tom, gentle and gay ally. Their wedding a beach affair Daniel officiated. To second chances, he toasted, James's hand in his, Riley giggling between. Harlan's anniversary passed quiet. A picnic in Prospect, stories swapped, laughter healing the hollows. He'd love this, Evelyn said, ruffling Riley's hair. Grandpa Harper. The humanistic arc bent toward light. Conflicts resolved not in perfection, but persistence. Daniel's book, Memoir of Ledgers and Loves, hit shelves in 2028. Bottomless no more, proceeds to queer shelters. James illustrated, his forward a vow. To the man who filled my empty frames. Old age crept kind. Silver threading their hair. Riley's teens a whirlwind of soccer and suitors. They retired to the cabin, porch swings creaking to birdsong. Evelyn visiting with tales of grandkids, hers and theirs. On a November dusk, 20 years to the day of that first check, Daniel and James sat by the fire, hands weathered but entwined. Worth it? James asked, eyes still green as spring. Every penny, every pain. Daniel kissed him, slow as rivers. You? James smiled, that eternal rogue. Bottomless love? Always. The flames danced shadows, but light held. In the end, family wasn't blood or bank. It was choice, forgiveness, the quiet miracle of staying.